What up, is Marcus Dynasty Football Dads? We have the Deonte Smith signed jersey. We're going to be giving it away for free here. I'm doing a follow-up to the video that I just did previously because I feel like people aren't understanding what I am saying correctly. It is the decision between Drake London. It is the decision of Garrett Wilson and Treylon Burks in startup Dynasty Fantasy Football. A lot of people are having startup drafts that include rookies, which is the smart way to do it. It's hard, too, if you're starting a league, not to include the rookies. And really what I am seeing here, now this does not matter, this is not rookie draft. This is completely the Dynasty startup. Now in rookie draft, they're being a little bit overvalued as well because you can get a lot for the 102, a lot for the 103, a lot for the 104 at this point. But we have to look at the statistics, right? 35%, 1 out of 3 almost, is going to have a chance of being a wide receiver 1 if they were drafted in the round 1 of the NFL draft. So we have to look at Drake London. We have to look at Treylon Burks and Garrett Wilson. And one of those 3 is probably going to be a successful wide receiver 1. Doesn't matter. It could be like 10. It could be 11 or whatever it might be. And the other 2 are going to not be successful wide receiver 1s in their entire career. This is Dynasty Fantasy Football. But we have to look at short term as well, too. And I'm just looking at these wide receivers, and Drake London, Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson, these are players that I said have been drafted higher than many of the other rookies. We're talking about Elijah Moore, even Jalen Waddle, Justin Jefferson, any of these rookies not named, basically Jamar Chase. These rookies have been drafted above that. And I look at it, I go, why? It doesn't make sense in my opinion. We have Drake London, whose average ADP is 44.5 total. We have Treylon Burks, 53.2. This is all according to Sleeper. And you have Garrett Wilson at 61.3. Now, other wide receivers around that area. You have Deonte Johnson, who has been a wide receiver 2. You have DJ Moore, who's been a high-end wide receiver 2 for his career. I mean, DJ Moore is still super young. We're talking about 25 years young, so maybe into the prime of his career. We have Michael Pittman, who you could say pretty much had a breakout, being 16th or 17th overall, depending if you're a PPR standard. And he's only 24 years old, and people always say, well, Drake is better than Michael Pittman Jr. in USC, so he's going to be better at the NFL level. That's not always the case. Different traits translate to the NFL level at different paces and different things. Like, not every Alabama receiver came into the league and was like, oh, well, this person was better than this person, so we have to do that. Like Jalen Waddle, you could argue was a worse wide receiver at Alabama. Davonte Smith, Heisman, we're talking about being incredible, but Jalen Waddle has been the better dynasty wide receiver so far. And so we can't just be like, well, if this player was better at college, he's going to be better at the NFL level. That's not always the case, not always how it works out. Sometimes it's schemes, sometimes it's college quarterbacks, it's injuries. There's so many things that can happen that can change this. So let's look at even other wide receivers. We have Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 2. You have Chris Godwin, who, yes, recovering from the ACL injury, is below all 3 of these guys. We have Jerry Jeudy, who, yes, Jerry Jeudy, he has Russell Wilson now. He's 23 years old, so he's still super young. I still have a lot of faith in Jerry Jeudy. Davonte Smith, and this is where I'm having the biggest issue with. Davonte Smith is a better wide receiver prospect than the 3 wide receivers we're talking about. Garrett Wilson, then Drake London, then Treylon Burks. I would rather have Davonte Smith. Davonte Smith is being drafted 70.3. 70.3. He was a low-end or a high-end wide receiver 3. He was 29th overall. And you look at his stat line, really. I mean, he was 104 targets, 64 for 916, and 5 touchdowns. Why is that? That is probably in the realm of possibilities for each of those 3 wide receivers. That would be probably a pretty good year. So you're saying, okay, let's say one of those receivers get that type of production, 1,005. Well, 1,005 would be a really good rookie season, and their values would drop. They would be in the 40s all the way down to 70. Yes, now A.J. Brown was traded on to the Philadelphia Eagles. That changes a little bit of things, of course. But Davonte Smith, his value has basically dropped since rookie year. There's many wide receivers that if you're drafting them that high, they need to produce at low-end wide receiver 1 level, high-end wide receiver 2 level immediately. And if not immediately, their value will drop. And I always hear people say, I'm going to flip them. I'm going to flip them. I'm going to flip them. You're not going to be able to flip them. You're not going to be able to flip probably two of the 3 of the wide receivers that we talk about, or even Chris Olave and Sky Moore and Christian Watson, like 2 of those 3 guys are probably going to end up being disappointments, and you're going to have 2 or 3 of these wide receivers that are going to be decent wide receivers, but at the level that they're being drafted at, most of these wide receivers, and I talked about this in a previous video, were being drafted in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s. Maybe a wide receiver would trickle in the 50s and 60s, but we're having wide receivers being drafted. I mean, Drake London is being drafted in the 40s. To be drafted in the 40s, he's going to have to produce at an extremely, extremely high level. I mean, look at wide receivers right ahead of him. T. Higgins, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs. Like, even Jalen Waddle is ADP a round ahead. And it's like, what are people doing? Jalen Waddle is pretty much like, how can you have a rookie wide receiver who is 23 years old, who is dynamic, who's 13th in overall in PPR? I mean, he's 30th. I mean, that's what you're hoping Drake London does pretty much in the scheme of things. And Jalen Waddle was breaking records for catches as a rookie. I just don't see it. I see the Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I see this. What's happening is I see people are overreacting to that. They see the last 2 years, and we forget about the rookie seasons of a majority of these wide receivers, which was the 2019 and 2018 and 2017 and 2016 and 2015. I think, 2014 was the Mike Evans year? So not Mike Evans year. That was a good year. I think it was let me just quickly check. That was a really good year. Mike Evans, and just click. I'm pretty sure it's 2014. 2014? Rookie year? 2014. Yeah, 2014 rookie year. And so really, we are looking at wide receivers, and we're looking at, man, there were some really, 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 really top-end players. And what we're forgetting about, and I think we just kind of ignore, is we're ignoring Jalen Reagors, Henry Ruggs. We're just kind of blocking out of our memory even the Rashad Batemans and stuff. Let's look at Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman was a prospect that a lot of people liked, including myself, and I haven't even looked at where he is at. Elijah Moore, 80 ADP of 78. Elijah Moore, a prospect that probably would fit into this category of Garrett Wilson. I mean, Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore are going to be 1A, 1B. They're going to be really, really close together. Rashad Bateman, 85.5. So you have a chance. Look at Rashad Bateman. Good situation. We thought was a good situation. I mean, they really have Marquise Brown, and that's it. They have Mark Andrews, of course, but, I mean, they have a good quarterback. Garrett Wilson or Marcus Mariota or Garrett Wilson or Drake London are not in necessarily great situations. We hope Zach Wilson's great. We hope that Marcus Mariota can actually throw the ball to the general vicinity of Drake London. And then you look at Treylon Burks, and yeah, they run the ball through Derrick Henry and through the running game there. And so that's going to be a big issue or a big question. I see a lot of these wide receivers. We're going to go next year, and you're going to have one of them that's above ADP right now. You're going to have one of them that's going to be 35. And it could be Drake London. And maybe he moves up that 9 spots. Or you're going to have a lot of these guys going to be in the 60s and 70s, like Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, Davonte Smith, into this category. And you're going to end up losing a couple of rounds of basically value immediately. And I'm not willing to do that, especially in startups. This is mostly startups. Again, I even would rather trade my 102, especially if I'm not in a huge rebuild. I'd rather take the gamble on a DJ Moore, a Terry McLaurin. I would rather Elijah Moore plus. Like, I would rather try Elijah Moore plus a 2023 first for 102. Like, I would rather try to get players that I feel a little bit more comfortable with. I would rather trade 2 top picks in this draft for Jalen Waddle. I'd just take Jalen Waddle. Or I'd rather trade 2 later picks for Deonte Smith, which I've done now twice. And I've seen other people trade 104 for Davonte Smith. And it's like, I'd rather do that. Or 108 for Rashad Bateman. Like, I'd rather do that. So it's just like, I think this class is not as strong as people think. I think that we're way overdrafting them in ADP of rookie drafts. And that's my opinion. And if you don't agree with it, that's fine. But I think what we're going to look at next year, we're going to look at this next year and see, man, Marcus, you're totally idiot. Drake London, 35. And then we're going to forget, Treylon Burks' ADP is 60. And Garrett Wilson's ADP is 83 or whatever. And you're going to be like, 2 out of 3. I mean, it's 2, what is it, the game where you have the 3 doors. One of them has a big car, and the other 2 are whammies. That's kind of what we're looking at here. So Do you want the car? Do you want the whammies? Which one do you want? Or you have 3 solid prizes, not a car, but maybe you got 3 nice, maybe instead of a $20,000 car and nothing, you got 3 $15,000 bikes. Are you a bike fan? I mean, at least you're going to have a bike. Or you're not going to get the whammy. I like to be a little bit more safer, especially when it comes to startup. I'm not making these huge risks in round 4 and round 5 and round 6. If round 8 comes along, I'm willing to throw some shots here. I mean, Christian wants an 89.2. I'll take the shot there at 89.2 instead of the risk at 44, 45, 53, around that area. All right, this is Marcus Dynasty Fun. Peace out. By the way, I'm at Garbage Time Fantasy Football later today. Peace out. Take care. We'll see you.